This episode is adapted from a clinician-written article on Mentalyc and brought to life in audio for therapists who prefer listening on the go.
Exactly. For those of us who do our best thinking while walking the dog or driving between appointments.
So true. This piece was written by Nuria Higuero-Flores, a psychologist, and we're really excited to explore her perspective here.
Wonderful. I'm always so interested to hear how other clinicians are navigating, well, everything right now.
Right? And just for context, if you're new to Mentalyc, it's a clinical intelligence platform that supports therapists with their documentation and clinical reflections.
Which is a perfect lead-in, actually, because you know that feeling, especially when telehealth first became, well, the only way for a while, that little knot of anxiety in your stomach before a virtual session?
Oh, I know it well. You're staring at your own face in the little box, wondering, is this gonna work? Can I really connect with this person through a screen?
Exactly. It's that fundamental question, isn't it? We spend our entire careers learning how to build this sacred thing, the therapeutic alliance, in a shared physical space. And then suddenly that space is a pixelated window.
A pixelated window. That's the perfect description. And all of the old rules feel like they don't quite apply. Can trust and empathy and that genuine rapport, can it really grow as strongly through a screen? It's a huge question.
It is. And I think we all held our breath for a while, waiting to see. I remember having this one client, we can call her Maria, who had debilitating social anxiety. The thought of coming into an office, sitting in a waiting room, it was a huge barrier for her.
Oh, absolutely. For some clients, the office itself is part of the challenge.
Completely. But meeting online, it actually allowed her to bypass all of that initial activation. She was in her own safe space, her own home. And over time, I swear, we built a connection that might have taken months longer to form in person because she felt safe enough to let her guard down from the very beginning.
Wow, that's such a powerful example of how the script can be flipped. We often focus on what's lost, but we forget to ask what might be gained. But it's not automatic, is it? That connection requires intentionality.
So much intentionality. You don't have the shared environment to lean on. You can't offer someone a cup of tea. You can't feel the energy shift in the room in the same embodied way. You have to actively create psychological presence.
And that video conferencing frame, it's so literal. It's bound by the dimensions of the screen. I can see a client's face, maybe their shoulders, but I have no idea if their foot is tapping anxiously or if their hands are clenched in their lap. You lose so much data.
You do. But then you also get these glimpses into their private world you'd never get in an office. Suddenly, their cat jumps on their lap, or you see a piece of art on the wall behind them that tells you something profound about who they are.
That's true. It's a trade-off. But the technical ruptures, there is nothing worse than being in the middle of a really deep, vulnerable moment with a client, and then for frozen screen.
Oh, the absolute worst. The audio cuts out, the screen freezes, it just shatters the container. And then you have to do this awkward dance of, can you hear me now? And it takes real work to repair that moment and get back into the flow.
It really does. And the eye contact thing, I'm still not used to it.
To make the client feel like I'm looking at them, I have to stare at the little green dot of my camera. But then I can't actually see their face and their reactions. So I'm constantly toggling between looking at their image and looking at the camera.
It's such a subtle, disorienting thing. It subtly changes the feeling of connection for both of us. And don't even get me started on the self-view. Seeing your own face on screen for hours a day, it adds this layer of self-consciousness, this performance anxiety that just isn't there in person.
Oh, 100%. I remember reading about a therapist who noticed his own attention would drift so much more easily in video sessions. In the office, the environment is controlled. It's dedicated. Online, he had to develop these new, mental disciplines just to stay fully present.
I feel that in my bones. The distractions are endless. The email notification that pops up, the dog barking downstairs, the temptation to just open one more tab. It takes a different kind of focus.
It does. But again, there are these new possibilities too. That screen sharing capability can be amazing for collaborative work. I've had clients share documents or images with me in ways that are actually more seamless than trying to huddle over a piece of paper in an office.
Totally. I had a client who was working on a thought record, and we used a shared digital template. We could both type into it in real time. It made it so much more interactive and collaborative. He said he felt more engaged with it than when he used to just fill out a worksheet by himself.
See, that's a perfect example of adapting the technique to the medium instead of just trying to force the old way to work. And so much of the success depends on other factors too, like our own comfort with the technology. If we look flustered or incompetent trying to get the video to work, what does that communicate to our client?
Right? It can come across as a lack of confidence or competence in general, which is the last thing you want to project. And the client's environment is huge. I've had clients trying to have a session from their car in a parking lot or from a corner of a busy house with people walking by.
The car session. A classic. And it's so hard for them to engage deeply when they're worried about privacy or just not in a settled space. It really highlights the digital divide, too. Not everyone has access to a private room, good lighting, and reliable internet.
It really does. And then you have client preferences. Some people, often younger clients or those with mobility issues, take to it like a fish to water. They love the convenience. Others find it alienating and just can't get comfortable with it.
And that makes sense. It also seems like relationships that were already established in person tend to transfer more smoothly to telehealth. You've already got that foundation of trust to build on.
For sure. Starting from scratch online is its own unique challenge. It all comes down to flexibility, doesn't it? If you try to rigidly replicate your in-person sessions online, you're going to struggle. The therapists who are thriving are the ones who are thoughtfully reimagining their practice for this virtual world.
So how do we do that? How do we actively cultivate that connection? I think one of the biggest things is enhancing our verbal presence.
Say more about that.
Well, since you're missing some of the nonverbal cues, you have to compensate verbally. More frequent acknowledgments like, I hear you, or that sounds incredibly difficult. More process comments like, I'm noticing a shift in your expression as you say that. You have to narrate the connection a bit more.
Yes, and your nonverbals have to be so much more deliberate. I find myself nodding so much more visibly on camera, using my hands more to show I'm engaged, making my facial expressions, a little bigger just to make sure they travel through the screen.
It's almost like a form of theater, and reflecting on how we're showing up in that little box is so important. It makes me think about tools that can help with that kind of reflection. I was reading about how something like Alliance Genie can help you track those patterns in your own communication, just from your progress notes.
Oh, that's really interesting. So it's not about recording sessions or anything like that. It's more like a way to get supervision-like insights from the documentation you're already creating.
Exactly. It analyzes the language in your notes to help you see things you might miss in the moment. Like, am I consistently using reflective language? Am I checking in on the alliance? It's about strengthening your own clinical intuition by seeing your patterns laid out. And speaking of making our lives easier, that idea of being able to transfer your notes to your EHR with a single click, no more copy pasting, that's the dream.
That is the absolute dream. The amount of administrative time that would free up, it's staggering to think about. That's time we could be using for anything else.
Right? Quick pause here. If this part of the work, the documentation, and the struggle to find time for reflection feels familiar, Mentalyc can help. Its AI-powered tools support your documentation and clinical judgment while staying fully HIPAA and SOC 2 compliant. You can explore it at Mentalyc.com.
Okay, so back to what we were saying before about being more verbal. I think another huge piece is just naming the awkwardness, explicitly bringing the medium into the room.
Yes. Instead of pretending the technology isn't there, you talk about it. Hey, how does this feel for you meeting over video? Or, my internet seems a little glitchy today. I apologize if I freeze for a second. It normalizes the experience and makes it a shared one.
Totally. It turns the technology from a barrier into part of the therapeutic relationship that you can discuss together. I read about the psychologist who specializes in trauma, and she created this pre-session ritual with her online clients.
Ooh, I love that idea. What did she do?
They take the first 2 minutes of every session to just settle into their spaces together. They adjust their posture, maybe notice their feet on the floor, and take a few mindful breaths. It creates this intentional transition from whatever they were just doing into the therapeutic hour. It establishes the container.
That's beautiful. It's a way of creating the ritual that clients miss from physically traveling to an office. Because that travel time was a buffer, a mental preparation space. We have to recreate that virtually.
We do, and it's so important to understand how clients are experiencing this. Many of them feel uncertain about the boundaries at first. You know, they're in their bedroom, you're in your home office. It can blur the lines and create confusion about the formality of it all.
And that's where providing clear guidance up front is so helpful. In your intake process, talk about it. Here's how we'll handle a dropped call. I recommend finding a private space where you won't be interrupted. Please turn off your notifications. Setting those expectations helps them get the most out of it.
Absolutely. And what's so encouraging is that the research is really starting to catch up and validate this whole experience. There was a huge meta-analysis that looked at a bunch of studies comparing videoconferencing therapy to in-person therapy.
And what did they find? I'm on the edge of my seat.
They found no meaningful difference in how strong the therapeutic relationship became. Both clients and therapists rated their connections similarly, whether they were meeting face-to-face or through a screen. The human bond can be just as effective.
That is so validating to hear. After all that initial anxiety, to know that the connection, the thing that matters most, is still there.
It is. Now, the connection does have a modest effect on outcomes, but it's real. And it seems to become even more important as therapy progresses. But here's the part that really blew my mind.
Okay, what?
In virtual settings, clients frequently rate their therapeutic connection more positively than their therapists do.
Wait, really? So we're sitting there worrying that we're not connecting, and the client on the other side of the screen feels genuinely connected and supported?
That's what the data suggests. It's like we therapists underestimate the strength of the bonds we're building. We're our own harshest critics, projecting our own discomfort with the technology onto the alliance.
That makes so much sense. It's our own uncertainty. And it also makes sense that therapists who have conducted more online therapy report feeling way more confident in their ability to connect. It's a skill. You get better with practice.
It's a skill, and it's also a new kind of fluency. There's this idea of developing digital fluency or onlineness, basically a new form of cultural competence. Understanding how our clients navigate their digital lives, being comfortable in that space, it helps bridge gaps that might otherwise get in the way.
That's a great frame. It's not just a tool, it's a culture. Of course, there are specific situations where this gets really tricky, like crisis management.
Yes. When you're physically distant from a client in crisis, you need to have an incredibly clear and established protocol. You need to know their location, have emergency contacts, a plan for what to do if they're at risk of self-harm. You can't leave any of that to chance.
Absolutely not. And the confidentiality concerns are different, too. You don't know who else is in the house. A roommate could walk through the background, a partner could be listening from the next room. That can really impact a client's willingness to be vulnerable.
And the screen fatigue is so real for both of us. That cognitive load of staring at a screen, trying to process information through this narrow channel, it's exhausting in a way that in-person sessions just aren't.
It is. And then you have specific populations that require totally different approaches. Like kids. You can't just expect a 7-year-old to sit still and talk to a screen for 50 minutes.
No way. I heard about this play therapist who did something brilliant. She sent an identical small set of toys to herself and to her young client, and they would do virtual play together, playing with the same toys in parallel. It created this shared activity that bridged the digital divide.
That is genius. It's all about that creative adaptation. And trauma work online has its own unique set of challenges and opportunities. For some clients, discussing trauma from the safety of their own home feels more manageable. But for others, the lack of a physically present, grounding person in the room can be really difficult.
Right. You have to adapt your grounding techniques. Instead of just focusing on the therapy room, you're guiding them to engage with the sensory experiences in their environment. What's something you can see in your room right now? Can you feel the texture of the blanket on your lap?
I also heard about a trauma specialist who developed a virtual safe place protocol. They collaborate with the client to pick a specific spot in their home where therapy will always happen, and they work together to make that space feel safe and contained. It integrates the therapeutic space into their daily life.
That's a beautiful way to empower the client. It all just underscores that the shift to video hasn't weakened the therapeutic relationship, but it has changed it. The core of what we do, building that human connection, is still the engine of healing.
Exactly. And it's so encouraging to know that we're often more critical of our ability to connect online than our clients are. Our clients are feeling it, even when we're doubting ourselves. Our confidence just needs time to catch up.
It does. And as we move into a future, there's probably going to be a blend of virtual and in-person care. These digital skills are just going to become essential. The success really comes from adapting thoughtfully, not just trying to clone an office visit onto a screen.
So, if there's one practical takeaway from all of this for a therapist listening right now, what would it be?
I think it's simple. Name it and normalize it. Start your next telehealth session by just asking, hey, before we dive in, I just want to check in on how this whole video format is working for you. Open the door. Make it part of the conversation. You'll be amazed at what you learn.
That's perfect. Simple, direct, and collaborative. The screen changes how we connect, but it doesn't change why that connection matters so much for healing. And if you want support tracking those alliance patterns and reflecting on your own communication across sessions, a tool like Alliance Genie can help you do that without storing any recordings, just using the notes you already write.